What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for Sports. All right, so before I get into this video, I got a couple things I need to say. Um, First of all, shout out to Aram for his donation to the channel via PayPal. Much respect to Aram. Always showing love to his channel. One of the most frequent contributors that I have as far as showing love to his channel. And he says, "Hi, Mike. Please accept my small gift to your YouTube sports channel. I always wondered where you place Dave DeBusschere, Patrick Ewing, and Bernard King on your all-time Knicks list. As you know, I'm a huge Knicks fan. LOL, be well." Yeah, I know you're a Knicks fan. I know you're a Knicks fan. You know what I'm saying? So, much respect to Aaron for that. And before I get into the video, also, I just wanted to tell anybody who I think most of you are already aware of it, and thank to everybody that have subscribed over there. But by the small chance there's still some people who aren't aware of my secondary channel, I have a channel called Too Raw for Sports. It's the number two, the word raw, the number four, and sports all together. And I'll put a link to my secondary channel in a pinned comment in the comment section. And that way you can sign up if you haven't signed up already, because a lot of my content is going over there. If you notice, some of my content has slowed down over here. I will still be uploading over here, but for the time being, I'm going to be uploading more on my Too Raw for Sports channel. So if you haven't subscribed to Too Raw for Sports, please subscribe to Too Raw for Sports. All right. So the question is, where would I rank Patrick Ewing, David DeBusschere, and Bernard King all-time Knicks? Well, the first two are easy, in my opinion. All right. Number one would be Patrick Ewing. Um, yes, he never won a championship. He went to two NBA finals. Um, really kind of only participated in one. The second one, he was more just a spectator, having suffered that Achilles injury. Um, but in 1994, they went 7 games with the eventual champion Houston Rockets. But this is the thing about Patrick Ewing, man. His longevity is what I think ekes it out for him. He played 15 years with New York Knicks, and he is primarily responsible, although it wasn't just him because there's no one man team. But um, people got to remember in 1985, the Knicks were in a serious situation. Their marquee guy, Bernard King, had just suffered what appeared to be a career ending injury. Um, Even with him, dominating with the Knicks for the prior 3 years or so, the Knicks were never a force like that. You know what I'm saying? Patrick Ewing was expected to bring the New York Knicks back to prominence. At that time, it had not been that long since the heyday of the Knicks in the 1970s. So New York fans were seriously expecting good things. You gotta remember, playing in New York is a lot different than playing in Indiana or playing in Sacramento. The pressure to win was unbearable. It had to be. It had to be a very stressful situation at times, being the face of a franchise, let alone the New York Knicks. But what he did do, even though he didn't win a championship, Ewing was able to bring that franchise back to respectability. All right, so that's something that uh, you have to give him credit for. So when you look at Patrick Ewing, he was a great center. Um, Great. Well, I'll say this: when I think of Ewing, I think of a guy who was a good rebounder, a good post scorer, a good shot blocker. He was a very aggressive shot blocker. He'd go after everything. And that's why a lot of times you guys like Ewan and Matumbo and Mourning, even also a guy like Sean Bradley. That's why a lot of times those guys were in posters because back then, guys took it to the rack, and the centers weren't pushed out to the perimeter. So when you're a guy that's not selective in who you try to, go after as far as shot blocking, Shaquille O'Neal, when you're not selective and you go after everybody, you're gonna get got sometimes. Look, I remember like when I used to play basketball. I never played organized basketball, but I love blocking shots, right? So I used to go after every fucking thing. And of course, I got dunked on. It happens. You get dunked on, right? But more often than not, Patrick Ewing was the man who was on the successful end of those exchanges, blocking the shot. But anyway, Ewing was one of the first centers to really be known for his jump shooting ability. Um, he could have some games where he was off, but when he was on, Patrick Ewing. I'm gonna tell you something. I remember back in the day when I used to watch the Bulls and Knicks. I tell anybody this: two things I always look for every time. There's two things I always look for anytime, and I could kind of get a feel of how this game is going to go for the Bulls. If John Starks looks like he's having a hot night back in those days, I'm like, fuck. I never worried about Allen Houston. I don't know. I mean, Allen Houston was the better player, but I just never worried about him because Jordan used to always shut him down. But John Starks, when he was there, even when he went to the bench, if he was having a hot night, I'm like, okay, this might not be an easy game. But more importantly, if Ewan starts off hitting his jump shots, it's gonna be a long night. And every time that we lost to the Knicks, Ewan had a big game. Whether it was 42, 37, 38, Ewan used to run the goddamn court, hitting his chest, probably laughing at Luke Longley for trying to guard him and shit, or before that, whether he was laughing at, what I'm saying, goddamn Corey Blunt, or laughing at Bill Winnington, or Bill Cartwright, or whoever. But yeah, I got Patrick Ewing number one. Number two, I would have Willis Reed as far as rankings. He didn't play quite as long as uh, Patrick Ewing. I think he played like 11 seasons. I think it was, or 10 or 11. I want to say something like 60, 63 to 74, or 64 to 75, something in that range. But he played a little bit over a decade. And I believe he won one Finals MVP. And I believe he also won an MVP award. I think it was 1970, I believe. I think Willis Reed won an MVP award, and he won two championships. Because of that, some people put Willis Reed ahead of Patrick Ewing, and I can see their argument. But I just think that Patrick Ewing was a better overall player. Willis Reed, though, I could argue, was a better leader, and he was a more consistent clutch performer than Ewing. Okay, I will see those points about Willis Reed to Patrick Ewing. Um, but look, Willis Reed was a great scorer as well. I think he was probably a little bit, for his size, maybe a little bit even better rebounder than Patrick Ewing. I don't recall him being an outstanding shot blocker. I think he was decent, okay, but I don't think he was an outstanding shot blocker. Uh, he had a he had a pretty good mid range jump shot as well. But to me, I would put Ewing ahead of him because of the fact that Ewing played longer, and it did help Willis Reed that he played with other Hall of Famers. Let's be honest, he did play with a lot of other Hall of Famers. So there's that. Now, with Bernard King, this is the thing. To me, I would put number three. I would have Walt Clyde Frazier number three. All right, who is becoming criminally underrated as an all-time point guard. I still think he's a top 10 all-time point guard. Walt Clyde Frazier had one of the greatest game sevens in the history of the NBA in 1970. 36 points. What was it? 7 rebounds, 19 assists. I think 6 steals. I think just a phenomenal performance at the point guard position. Clutch guy. Won 2 NBA championships. Perennial All Star. I would have to put him number three. Number four, man. Maybe Dave DeBusschere. Number four. Um, Tremendous rebounder for his size. Was a baseball player before he went to became a basketball player. Uh, Played Major League Baseball, switched over to basketball, played for the Detroit Pistons, but of course he's known for the Knicks. Uh, Great rebounder, great defensive player. Of course, multiple champion, very popular with the New York media and New York fans, Dave DeBusschere, because of his play. Um, Number five, I would put Carmelo Anthony probably there. Didn't win any championships, but he did bring the Knicks back to respectability. During his tenure with the New York Knicks, he averaged 25 points, almost 25 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, was a perennial All-Star. Prior to this past season, had Phil was on the last Knicks team that was even good. You know what I'm saying? You have to also wonder what could have happened if Amari Stoudemire never got hurt. If Amari Stoudemire never got hurt, some other injuries didn't pop up as well, uh, would the Knicks have been a different team, especially the first 3 or 4 years, if those injuries didn't occur? But Carmelo Anthony, to me, had a longer career with the Knicks than Bernard King. So to that's why I would have to put him ahead of Bernard King. That's five. Now number six, honestly, I would still have to put someone else ahead of him. I would have to put Earl the Pearl Monroe. Great player with the then Baltimore Bullets. When they made the trade for him, a lot of people said it wouldn't work. How you gonna have two guys who are so ball dominant work together? But it worked. Earl the Pearl Monroe changed his game for the betterment of the team. Uh, became noted for his defensive ability, and he was a very also another very popular player with the fans, and he was a prolific scorer still. Even though it was in a more of a controlled situation. Great player, great ball handler for his era. Um, Probably the best ball handler, actually. Him and Pete Maravich. So I would have him six. So Bernard King, let me think. I guess seven. I guess I'll have Bernard King seventh. But then, you know what I'm saying, there's some other guys you gotta think about, man. Now I know people gonna say he played back when these motherfuckers were taxi drivers and shit, right? I get all of that. But when you think about it, can you make a case to put Richie Guerin ahead of him? Richie Guerin played his damn near his whole career with the Knicks, right? I got to look that up again, but Richie Guerin had a longer career. Now, just for the sake of argument, because he played so long ago, I will put Bernard King at 7. But you can make an argument that you can put Richie Guerin ahead of him. Richie Guerin was a star with the Knicks back when they were better known as Knickerbockers in the 50s into the early 1960s. And I believe now it was Richie Guerin's mark of 57 that Bernard King broke when he had that 60-point game. I believe that's the case. But anyway, that's kind of how I would have it. Now, I would have Ewing number 1, Willis Reed number 2. That's no debate. Dave DeBusch I would put 4th. And just for the sake of argument, because it's more recent, Bernard King maybe 7th. But like I said, I have to look at it a little bit. I have to look at it again because you can make a strong argument that Richard Guerin should be ahead of him because Bernard King only played 3 years or so with them. So it wasn't like they had a whole bunch of playoff success to make up for it. So 7th, maybe even 8th. And I'm trying to go through my mind if there's anybody I'm forgetting because, hey, somebody might even say, what about Charles Oakley? Well, Charles Oakley wasn't a skilled offensive guy, but he did play 10 years with them. Went to 2 NBA finals. No, one. I think by 99 he was gone. But he did play in an NBA finals and was a huge fan favorite. I don't know if I'll put him with Bernard King, though. Um, just thinking, just going through my mind. This is anybody I'm forgetting. But I guess that's about right. I would put Bernard King 7th for 8th, depending on how I would look at Richie Guerin. But that's pretty much it, man. I hope that kind of satisfies, your question on that one. And tell me what you guys think.